Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this show runs through the ages. Sinners and saints, goblins and haints, but beware as they say we're contagious. Sick with the truth, we uncover the lies. We beat on the drums as they march side by side. Wake up, my dear friends, and smell that fresh roast. Last night shall no longer exist. You're here by yourself, but you're never alone, as we spin stories you'll hear in the mist. Reptilians and greys, we folk who stay hidden. Mysterious booms, archaeology forbidden. Stay away from the village, keep off of the moors. There's a lady in white and bloodstains on the floor. So sit back and relax, take the load off your feet, as we're here to amaze, entertain, and complete. You see, my name is John, and Stacey's here too, and my, do we have something in store for you. Welcome to the Paranormal Sideshow, with your host, authors of Till Death and Beyond, John and Stacey Edwards of ParanormalSideshow.com. Hello and welcome to the Paranormal Sideshow. I'm your host, John Edwards, and joined as always by my lovely wife of 20 plus years. We'll say it like that. Stacey.
Hello.
We're not going to give you like the little digits there. We'll just be like 2 decades.
More than 2 decades.
And being that we've got the new format, the new groovy format, I realize we got that and I'm sticking to it. Man, I can't wait for halftime. I have, before you get to the big headlines, I would like to, being that it's our Christmas show, I thought that I would go ahead and say that from all of us, which is both of us, here at the Paranormal Sideshow, we would like to wish you the happiest of holidays, season's greetings, happy Hanukkah, happy New Year, happy Kwanzaa, happy winter solstice, happy Yule, y'all, happy Festivus for the rest of us, and, if you're boring and like me and Stacey, Merry Christmas.
I think you covered everybody there.
I hope I did.
I hope so.
My intention was to cover everyone. We'll talk about in halftime my big insensitivity class. Good Lord. I just felt it, in like retro felt it. My big inclusivity class that went really well. I was like a star student, a star pupil. You'd be so proud of me.
Oh, I'm sure I would.
But we'll get to all that, folks. This is the big thing. For your Christmas, I got you a big Christmas present. And she's sitting right beside me, and man, she's got some top news stories. Stacey, what you got for us this week?
Well, let's start into the news with a pretty big one. This is about the intelligence officer that was at Roswell in 1947, had a secret journal.
Really?
Yes, he did. And they think that releasing the secret journal could offer some new clues about the UFO crash in 1947.
But Army officer, you wouldn't mean Jesse Marcel.
I do, in fact, mean Jesse Marcel.
Ooh,
so
Major Jesse Marcel.
I won't go through the whole story. I'm pretty sure everyone listening to the show knows the story of Roswell.
Okay, wait a second. Listen. Ever since the inception, of this show, and of course we just celebrated 10 years, okay? And I don't care. You can go like, well, that was a different name, and that was a different... Turn it off and stop listening now, okay? For the rest of you that are cool, we just celebrated the 10-year mark and all that good stuff for the show. And the whole 10 years we've said, we're not going to talk about Roswell. Roswell. Because you can go anywhere and listen to Roswell. We don't have any reason to talk about it. But you know what? I've been really unfair to Roswell. I'm going to tell you something. Roswell is damn cool. And there are some amazing irregularities about Roswell. And it's become even cooler to me lately, last few years, because finally the government comes out, and they're like, well, actually, there is an Area 51, even though we swore to God there wasn't for all those years under penalty of death. And it is, but we just keep our cardboard boxes that we don't want to break down there. That's all it is. And every now and then we like to play rocket socket robots and out of sock puppets, and we got those there too. You can understand the embarrassment involved in such things that we don't want to tell people. It's the same thing with Roswell. Well, Roswell's, it's a real place on the map, see? But we didn't ever do anything real special there. Isn't that where the 509 is, though? You know, the only guys that were allowed to do anything with the nukes when we were doing the secret nuclear program, where we blew up a country? Well, yeah. I mean, there's that. If you want to, semantics. Yeah. Well, the deal is, all right, Roswell, they've come out and they're like, it was, let me think, because I knew this. When they gave their official explanation of what actually happened back in 1947 in the lovely month of June, they like to say, well, after all these years, we're finally going to tell you, it was top secret. It was, you know what? I'm not going to say it like that. It was top secret. It really was. And I mean, you guys were right somewhat, but God, you don't know anything. Because it was top secret, but it was a weather balloon too. It really was. And the reason it was a weather balloon and the reason it was top secret is because we had it up in the very highest altitude you could have that damn balloon. And the reason it was up there was sound waves. That's right. It was Russian sound waves. Because if they were doing testing on nukes back then, we didn't know unless we could smell it. And hear it, and obviously it's a little bit far away from us. So the sound waves, our scientists, they told us that if a nuke went off, it would go boom in that upper sound wave, and then there's no other pollution up there, so that son bitch go all the way around, and that'd make our balloon go flonky. and that's how we knew if they were doing something, because there's sound get trapped up in the sound wave area. and that's what it was. That was top secret, and that was a damn balloon, and we had crash test dummies in it. We don't know why. We thought it'd be funny, put them in there like they were up that far, and that's what that was. They were all messed up. See, I don't buy that, and the reason I don't buy that, and the reason that and by the way, they were screaming Russia, Russia, Russia back in the 40s. Mm-hmm. In the 40s. It is the biggest red herring, ever. It's just like, if you're too old or too young to have seen Scooby-Doo Kids or whatever it was, what is it? The Scooby, what was that?
I don't remember which one that was.
Anyway, it had the Scooby Kids, mm-hmm. and they were all kids, and Red Herring was the one that Freddy was always just like, it was Red Herring, and they're like, no, it wasn't Red, and Red's like, it really wasn't me, even though he was the worst kid in town. He was the worst kid in town, this fat redheaded bully. We all know one, right? And that asshole's always the one, right? Well, he never was the one doing what Freddy said. It's Russia. That's like the literal, the metaphor for Russia in that cartoon for me. Because everything, as far back as it goes, folks, it's always been like, they did it back to Hollywood back in the day. Whenever they didn't like one of the fellow co-stars, it was like, hey, man, I think Fred Astaire is a Russian Asian. I'm not saying anything. and next thing you know, these people are being thrown in the slammer. But all right, so check it out. It wasn't some stupid ass balloon going up into the pooposphere or whatever it was. The deal was, this is really a big deal. Really a big deal. Okay. The 509, which literally that was their job, right? They were the only bomb unit in the world exclusively responsible for the deployment of atomic weapons. I'm going to say that again. They were the only bomb unit in the world exclusively responsible for the deployment of atomic weapons. So they probably were a little bit experts. Mm-hmm. They might know the difference between a weather balloon and a bleep bleep UFO. Okay, just saying. They're probably not going to mistake a run-of-the-mill weather balloon, and Major Jesse Marcel, who this story is going to be talking about, and I don't even know what this story is talking about, but I do know that Jesse Marcel of the 509th was amongst the first on the scene, and he claimed that the wreckage was strewn about a very huge area, and the wreckage was not of this earth. His words. Mm-hmm. There was several pieces recovered. There was one chunk that was several feet long and wide, several feet wide as well. Light as a feather, he said. But you couldn't destroy it. I mean, they took blowtorches to it. Everything. You couldn't hurt it. And of course, everybody's heard about wadding the stuff up and it going right back the way it was supposed to. And by the way, that balloon test they talk about, that's Project Mogul. You can look it up. I'm not saying that test is not real, okay? But it's not this. Mm-hmm. It's just not. It's just like when they did the Area 51 stuff and anything else from the government. You can't trust a damn thing that comes out. I mean, not anything. And I hope they're listening. I'm the most patriotic son bitch on this planet. I love this country, but damn, I hate all of you. I'm just gonna say it, and I'm not talking about the soldiers and everybody else, because so many of my listeners are military people, are red-blooded patriotic people, but I'm talking about the pencil-pushing butt wipes that like to cover stuff up, that know things, that like to cover things up for your own agendas. Mm-hmm. And that's the only reason. And all of you can take that pencil and put it in a nasty, smelly place. I'll just say it like that. But another weird part to Roswell, they flew the wreckage from the UFO in 2 separate planes to Wright-Patt. Okay, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Right.
And they did that for just in case they crashed, so they would at least have some of it. Okay?
Right.
Color me crazy, but I don't think you're going to take weather balloon pieces and fly them in 2 separate planes.
Right. It's not like you don't know what it is.
You already know, right?
Yeah, you know what it's made of, who made it, where it was made, when it was made.
Exactly. and this is all on record. Mm-hmm. So the bodies, I mean, that's another thing. The bodies were recovered. There are people that on their deathbed, several people, and you can find this. This is not hard to find. As they're dying, folks, people that thought, well, if I lie, I'm going to go to hell. If I don't lie, and I've been saved, I've asked for forgiveness, I'm going to go to heaven. Now, regardless of what you think about religion right this second, right before you die, you may think a little differently.
Perhaps.
And just in case you were wrong, a lot of people decide, you know what, I may get saved. just in case.
What's it gonna hurt?
What people normally don't do mm-hmm. is sit there and do a big bold-faced lie right before they die. Mm-hmm. They want to get stuff off their chest. Believe it or not, there will come a time in your life when you want to be nice to somebody. It even happens with age. I know when I started getting older, I got gentler. I got more compassionate. And Christmas, for instance, is now about the feeling I have giving things to others. These things happen. When you're dying, these were old men who had served their country well, done amazing things in their life. And they decided right before they died, oh, by the way, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you the truth here. And, you have people that were there getting called about coffins, and about this. Just listen. They recovered alien bodies in Roswell in June 1947. There was a crashed UFO in Roswell in June 1947. Also in June 1947, oddly enough, Kenneth Arnold up on the West Coast, that's when he saw the flying saucers, and we coined the term flying saucer. Mm-hmm. And this all happened around the same time period, and of course that ushered in the amazing, crazy UFO age of the 50s. But we're talking about the atomic age, and so these crazy, stupid primates down here finally learned how to use the bomb. And did use the bomb, unfortunately. And, I think that what happened there was we woke up some people to go, okay, look, we can't let them play anymore because this is how we did it last time. They're repeating their own history. However you want to believe that, Roswell is a cool story. It has been covered many times. But there are certain elements to it that just scream out, this is real, this is legitimate. So anything, and what amazes me is we're talking, 7 decades? You look at 7 decades go by, and we could still have amazing evidence come out from this, which is just mind-blowing. But I just wanted to take a second there and really give my real thoughts on Roswell, because I know I always blow by it.
Right. We sort of just brush over it. Well, this particular story is about how the inquiry has been reopened because of this supposed diary that Marcel kept during the time of the Roswell crash. Now, this particular diary is in possession of his grandchildren, and there is a show on the History Channel. I believe it's called Roswell, the First Witness, and it's part of their History's Greatest Mysteries series. And so they've done this 3-part series. I believe it started back on the 12th, so it's still going on right now.
Wow.
And they're going to sort of centralize their new inquiry around this diary. And supposedly, during the analysis of the diary, there's a lot of cryptic language in it, and they feel like it could possibly reveal maybe coded messages that he wrote about the crash at the time that it happened. Because he was supposed to have one stance about it, but this was his personal diary. He could write whatever he wanted. Now, it does say in this article that Time reported in 1997 that Marcel told an interviewer that he actually believed that the object that crashed in New Mexico desert was of extraterrestrial origin. So he did go on record sort of as saying that, later on in his life, I guess 50 years after the crash. But this is a completely different, this is his actual words he wrote down in 1947.
That is amazing.
So it was really nice, I think, of his grandchildren to offer that up to investigators as something to use as, to reopen it and to sort of get the truth out there.
No, that it's crazy. I can't believe that's been there this whole time. You know what I mean? That's
right.
That's just nuts.
So I don't know. It doesn't say that there's absolutely 100% coded messages in it, but it does say that there is a lot of cryptic language. So you never know. That would be the place that somebody wrote, their true feelings.
Oh, yeah.
If it was their personal journal. So
absolutely. And there's so much to the story. Even when they stopped and that's when he made him change the story and do that fake picture you see with the weather balloon. And, they were like, well, you're not going to talk about it no more. Everything got changed.
Yes.
And there's just so much to the story. There's been a lot written on it over the years, and you can find a lot of it, but you're going to also find a whole lot of people. It's okay. Roswell in a nutshell is the most well documented, with the most evidence, UFO case, as well as the most debunked. So it kind of holds 2 distinctions. And it's always had this real, opinionated, divide, because there's a lot you can pull to. There's a lot. The more information down on something, the more you can pick at it, the more you can mess with it and everything. But I look at eyewitnesses. At the end of the day, like I said, you're not going to go that many years, and people normally will change. There's a lot of eyewitnesses, man. That I firmly believe where there's smoke, there's fire. There's some kind of fire there.
Absolutely.
Or there would be no smoke. So anyway, very, very cool stuff.
All right, well, let's move on. And this is a story about some mysterious radio signals that have been detected from an exoplanet in deep space. This is something that they've never been able to find from a faraway planet before.
Right.
And they claim it could give us a new way to examine alien worlds. So according to this article, to date, more than 4,500 exoplanets have been discovered because, you have the stronger telescopes. They've been searching for them. And even though they found this many exoplanets, they've never found a radio emission emanating from any of these faraway planets until now.
Oh,
so
wow.
they believe that they've detected these radio bursts that originated in the constellation Bots. And this is a study that they published in the scientific journal Astronomy and Astrophysics. And what they did was
it was actually published in a paper.
They compared it to some radio emissions that they know come from Jupiter. and they've sort of compared them, and they believe that these are the same type of radio emissions, but they've just never, I mean, it's very weak. They've just never detected that from such a far away planet. And if they're able to confirm it, then it opens up like a new way to find exoplanets that they necessarily can't see.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we're talking tens of light years away, like far and far away. So I thought it was really cool that they, number one, I didn't realize that planets themselves just gave off these radio emissions, but now they have a way to detect them. So I thought that was really cool. And it's a brand new, they just discover brand new things all the time.
Yeah, it seems like it's a weekly deal.
Crazy.
I mean, it is a weekly deal.
Mm-hmm.
Every single week we have something.
Yes.
And it just keeps, even like with the archaeological discoveries here on our planet, it's technology's really ripping a new one.
It is. Well, on the same kind of space with radio emissions topic, there are some alien hunters that have detected mysterious radio signals from Proxima Centauri.
Ooh, that sounds very sci-fi.
It does. Now, there are stories.
Centauri.
Well, there's a lot of stories out there about people who claim to have had contact with aliens from like Alpha Centauri and this whole area. And I think they even talked about where this Proxima Centauri was before we had discovered this. So it's a very legitimate area of space for alien life. And now they have detected a mysterious radio signal coming from that vicinity. And they're even comparing it to the famous WOW signal from 1970s. So it's pretty impressive. Now, this is the Breakthrough Listen project, which we've talked about before. And they were using Australia's Parkes Observatory to specifically study Proxima Centauri, and they detected this conspicuous signal. They detected it last year. They've just been kind of trying to finish up the study so that they could publish a paper on it. And the detection was leaked to the Guardian before the research was ready for publication. So now there's news articles on it. That's how we know about it. The study hasn't actually been published.
Oddly enough,
yet.
The signal was All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey.
Got here just in time. So one thing I really like about this article was the very first line of it was, it's almost certainly not an extraterrestrial telegram, but we found these waves coming from the vicinity of Proxima Centauri. That's almost like saying, please don't think that it is, but don't think that,
What, did you send the Earthlings? Boop, boop. I sent them a dick pic.
Right. They mentioned several times how that they still have to analyze the signal, and experts caution that there's almost certainly an ordinary explanation for the signal. And, probably there is.
There's not an ordinary explanation for anything in 2020. Are you kidding? I mean, nothing.
Right.
It's been a weird ass year, and everybody knows that. But it just keeps getting weirder.
Well, it's very interesting because this particular project, the Breakthrough Listen project, that's what they're listening for. They've found something that they are looking for.
Oh, they're filled with the bunkers.
And probably.
They've got the one guy who believes, and then the rest, they're there to beat the shit out of him when they find something.
So they're preparing two different papers, one describing the signal and then a follow-up, sort of as a follow-up analysis. And it's not quite yet complete. So we'll be looking for that when it comes out to see what they claim this odd signal from Proxima Centauri is. I think those are supposed to be the tall aliens in that area.
We're very tall, ma'am.
The tall white aliens. I'm not 100% sure.
You know what they say.
I'm not up on my where do the alien races live in outer space,
We can show
information.
Would you like to make a donation?
Well, speaking of SETI, there's going to be a new SETI program in China.
Oh.
So for years, there's a top alien hunter over there, a cosmologist named Zhang Tongji, and he has been pushing for China to enter the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. And for years, he has been asking to be able to do this research.
Alien Hunter Biden.
Yeah, and he's basically been doing all of this on the side with his own money, because he's just really interested in it.
Right.
And it turns out that he has been granted 17 and a half hours of using the telescope they call FAST, the 500 meter aperture spherical radio telescope.
Right.
Which is the humongous one that they just built over there, and is absolutely more powerful than any other telescope of its kind. So even the ones that our SETI uses.
Yeah, right.
So he feels like if he's going to have success, if somebody's going to find some alien signals out there, it's going to be him.
We have the largest telescope in. Oh, it's so big. Huge.
Well, he claims it's a really hard sell over there, that they don't want to give him the time, but he was able to, weasel these 17 and a half hours. He has a list of targets he wants to, use his time on, and is hoping that he can listen for some unusual radioactivity and get something with that humongous telescope. You never know. It is a very, very powerful new telescope.
Yeah, I'm sure if they find something, they'll be really quick to give the information out.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to let us know pronto.
So accurate. So accurate.
But so China's going to have their own, quote, SETI project now.
That's awesome.
So we'll see how that goes.
Maybe Hollywood can make a movie, or the NBA can do a game for it.
All right, so let's move on to a mystery. Mm-hmm. A mystery that scientists believed they had solved, but found out that they didn't.
Oh, well.
This is interesting. So this is about the Seneca guns.
Almost anything.
Yeah, it's about the Seneca guns.
Oh.
Yes.
A mysterious boom, you say?
Yes, a mysterious boom. So the Seneca guns are these loud booming noises that happen off the North Carolina coast. They've been happening for 150 plus years.
Age in memoriam.
Yes, forever. And nobody has an explanation. So there are some researchers who took part in a study, and they presented their findings on December 7th at the annual meeting of the American Geophysical Union. And what their theory was that the noise was coming from some kind of seismic activity. So they went back through all of the accounts of when the Seneca guns were heard, all the booms. They listed them all out, and then they cross-referenced that with all the seismic activity that they knew of. And it turns out they were quite surprised to know that none of the booms, not one, coincided with any earthquake events.
That's almost strange in its own self.
Isn't it? Yeah, you would think just out of coincidence alone, chance.
Maybe when the tectonic plates don't move, it makes it go.
Is that what it is?
It's like there's a rancor down below its plates. It's like, I'm trying to breathe.
He's knocking to get out. So for anyone that doesn't know, these are of course named after the Seneca tribe, I think, of Native Americans. And they were made popular back in 1850. I think it was James Fenimore Cooper who wrote a book called The Lake Gun, and the
Seneca tribe was so happy. They were just like, they're like, we appreciate this. After taking land and people and raping they named the annoying guns.
Yes, the Seneca guns. Well, the lake there, I think, is called Lake Seneca, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So he said that the sounds were very similar to the explosion of a heavy piece of artillery. But the story really goes back further than that, because early European settlers, they believed that
it was exploding cows.
No, but I never thought of that. They need to check into that. They believed it was the ghostly remnants of the Seneca tribe still fighting for their land.
What the hell they used to fight? Exploding cows?
I don't know. They thought it was a ghostly noise. But
all you have to do is light right here.
Just wait from the fart. Yeah, but I believe that it said that the Seneca tribe also had an oral tradition about the noise.
Sorry, I had it. I coughed.
They believed that it was angry shouts from their god. So these noises were around before the tribe was even there. So they've been going on forever. I think the thinking now is it's some sort of atmospheric. They have no idea. They have no idea what this is. And I just thought it was really interesting that they did this whole study and they had to present it and say, it wasn't what we thought.
Loud boom that's been going on before the Native Americans? Guns, sounds of artillery from nowhere?
Yeah. I gotta hire that guy.
Yeah.
I just gotta hire that guy to follow me around, man.
Just narrate your life.
I see so much weird stuff during the day where he could be like car flipping you off for no apparent reason.
It could get annoying though when you start making like food choices to be like, McDonald's again?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, or
Chick-fil-A?
yeah, I was gonna say it'd be Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A grilled nuggets, buffalo sauce again. But the Seneca guns are just one of many. They just happen to have a name, and the weird thing about the Seneca guns is and how old they are, and the fact that they've been around forever. It's not like my normal mysterious booms. It is like it, but not like it at the same time, because you can never tell where the booms are going to be, how long they're going to stick around. There are some areas that'll have them for months.
Right.
And then there's other areas where it'll happen a single time. Now, the single one-offs, a lot of times I think that might be atmospheric. That could be something, and the booms still don't surprise me. I mean, they don't get my goat anywhere near as much as the sky harpsichords. And,
right. The screeching noise.
Yeah, whatever it is. It sounds like heavy machinery in the sky.
Right.
They can call it any stupid thing they want to, but it sounds like if you're removing heavy machinery in the sky. And that's what it sounds like. And that because I've experienced it personally, that is weird.
It is.
And that's when you sit there and you feel so small, man. If you've ever been under a C-130 plane when it's going over, and you think a couple of things. How in the physics can this thing be in the air?
Right.
And just how minuscule we really are. When you hear heavy machinery out of nowhere, you hear this, it sounds like I've said before, like if you can imagine dimensions crashing against one another, that's what it sounds like. Now, I honestly think, if we're getting into my woo area of thinking, I truly believe it could be like a mothership that has come into our atmosphere. Because a lot of times when these things happen and people do spot these motherships, they're like, think Arizona Lights. Right, you're talking miles long and all this stuff. You would think that would do something to the atmosphere, something.
You would think so,
or some kind of sound. But anyway,
well, one thing I like about the Seneca guns story is it's a phenomenon that happens over and over. It's been happening for a long time. It's kind of like our Brown Mountain Lights. It happens. It's been happening for a long time, and it goes way back before any real modern technology. Like you can't use that as the reason.
Cool name for a metal band, wasn't it?
What's that?
Seneca guns.
Yeah, it would be.
And like have this, that's...
It'd have to be heavy metal. You use the word guns, could be heavy metal.
Normally.
Yeah.
Yeah. but Seneca guns, that's a cool... Or it'd be a good place for like a bodybuilding tournament.
There you go.
And the winner with the double bicep pose,
Flashing the guns.
Winner of the Seneca guns at the Seneca gun show. Anyway.
You just gave somebody an idea.
Yeah, a bunch of short guys.
All right, so I have one more quote story update kind of thing I wanted to put here. Because
it's the quote story update kind of thing.
Well, it's an update to something we talked about before, and I want to say it's a news story, but it's not a technical news story because it was. You'll see.
Oh, wait a second! It just got dark in the room. Yeah. I know what this is.
So if you all remember last year around Halloween.
Our listeners probably do not.
They probably don't. Well,
go ahead and load another bowl, and you'll quickly remember what you were doing then.
Last year,
weird phenomenon.
At Halloween, there was a show on Travel Channel. It was a live in Salem, and they had all the different paranormal.
By last year, she means 2019.
Great, yes, the different paranormal groups came and did different things in different areas, and we watched it and we talked about it. And it was great, mostly. And there was one part of the show that I was a little annoyed with. And that was the part with Dana and Greg Newkirk and how they went in on live TV and did what they called an interactive magic ritual. And it was supposed to be this sigil that opened portals. And well, we talked about it, and I think I ranted just a little bit.
I actually had to make her redo it. She did her rant to start with. I had to hear the rant live. And I just want you to know, in our house, when we were watching this, stuff started flying around in the kitchen. And I didn't know if it was because of Stacey or because of what we were watching. But Stacey went nuts that night, and she never does, by the way. Only if stuff is, suspect. And then when we did the show, she went, I was like, no, redo that. Just just a little bit lighter, please.
Okay, so this story is, like I said, it's not a technical news story because it's just something that they put up on their website as a story.
Right.
like they wrote the news story.
Right.
But supposedly they're going to be joining Kindred Spirits for the season premiere on January 2nd because, as they claim, and I think this was on a Facebook post, that their little experiment that they did last year came with some side effects.
Right.
Really? You think?
Yeah. Well, I mean, partly because, you were upset that you never saw it closed. Like if you were opening it in everybody's home and, they had no say in that matter.
Right. Well, and they were asking all these people to do stuff that people didn't know what they were doing, what they were opening, what they were taking part in, really, and I don't know. It just was bad.
When I was a kid and I ordered Picture Pages play at home thing with Bill Cosby.
Right.
If it had been like a Ouija board. and he'd be like, oh, okay, kids, put your hands right here on the okay, and then put your, oh, sorry, kids, you getting sleepy? No, sorry. But yeah, right. I got you.
Well, it says in this article that they wrote that after they did the show, after the ritual hit the airwaves, as they say it, that people began flooding the social feeds with reports of things like you said, ghostly things happening in their houses, glitches on the television, mysterious things going on, ghostly activity in their homes, whatever. Whenever they finished, it says that the Kindred Spirits team were left with a feeling that something was unfinished.
Yeah, like
the ritual. Exactly. And I believe we, mentioned that and said what a bad idea it was. So hopefully they will fix their horrible mistake that they made last year on January 2nd. I don't know if they've done that already or not, but just
blame 2020 on them.
Public service announcement. If you see someone doing a live interactive magic ritual on TV, maybe don't participate.
Yeah.
So... And that's all my opening news.
All right. Well, that's that. Where do I go from there?
To halftime.
And halftime it is. Welcome to what we like to call halftime, because it's like not necessarily the correct true north version of the half of the show or anything.
Right.
But it's where we like to put the flag and say this is the halftime poll. Mm-hmm. So this is where we're at. We break up the show amongst very important news that we consider in headlines or shade tosses, as we just had, and what we consider the better news on the second half of the show. First half of the show is stuff that Coast to Coast AM might steal from us in a week, and the second half of it, or stuff that we had a week before them, and then we didn't get off our butts and do it, and you know how it goes. I will give you a little bit of apology here starting off, that if I trail off a little bit or whatever, I've got an incredibly sore throat, and it's really bad on the left side. So just like every other part of my body, my throat decided to hurt worse on the left. Strangest thing ever. Got a bad left arm, bad left shoulder, bad left hip, bad left knee. Everything's on the left. So I don't know. Maybe it's
at least you're consistent.
It might be my evil is there on the left. So got a lot of stuff to talk about this week. I would like to start off, being that it is the Christmas season, if you will. Thanks, Dusty. Being that it is the Christmas season, I do want to talk about what you could do that would be really wonderful for some deserving boys and girls this Christmas time, when it's really the time of year to think about other people. So patreon.com/paranormal sideshow, that's where you can go and just give, for $2.99 a month, you can sponsor a couple. And that couple will do things like tell you about their sex life and, randomly stop the show and come back because of their sex life. They will give you quality hour upon hour of content. They will love you. They will love you and cherish you like nobody else ever can. I don't care what his name is. He can't love you like I love you. I promise you that. But other than that, we also use all the funds for good stuff that has to do with the shizo. And just good stuff coming up, man. There's a lot of good stuff ahead. 2021 is going to be a stellar year. Just really looking forward to, as we said a couple weeks ago, the next 10, right? So we really appreciate it. Anything you guys can get on there. That's why we put it down to $2.99 anyway. We didn't, if you want to give more, though, we won't send Stacey out there to shade you. We appreciate it all the same, and we love each and every one of you. All of the patrons that's out there, we absolutely love you. You are the worm at the bottom of our bottles, and you are exactly where all the alcohol is that keeps us going. So we really appreciate you. So halftime this week. Oh my God, we got a lot to get to. Other than the sick ugh, I actually made a note that said sick ugh, so they know, just in case it sounds a little bit off or whatever. I might sound better. Maybe I get a little bit of salty sea captain. So one thing I want to talk about is on our recent trip, Stacey and I, for our anniversary weekend, we went down to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And we love to go to Myrtle Beach, but we love to go to Myrtle Beach on off season. I don't know why we like it. We really love living in the Northeast, and so we're so used to cold beaches that Myrtle Beach in the winter still feels like July in Maine.
It does.
It's just one of those things. It's just like, oh, hey, let's get a bikini. But we got down there. It was in the 70s, so it was awesome. The fun part for us is honestly the drive. We love 6-hour drives. We love it because we are avid listeners of Audible. We have books that we only listen to each other. We have this cool little date we do several times a week where we go to Chick-fil-A at night when I get off, and we'll get our nuggets and we'll go up to this hill, and we park and just sit there and eat our stuff and listen to like an hour of Stacey will play her games that she gets done eating, and we listen. A lot of times recently it's been Graham Hancock stuff, but we've been into several series of books, and we started a new series, and oddly enough there was like book 12 come out recently of this series, and so I saw the ad for it, and I just want to turn you guys on to it because I know I have a bunch of people that are over the road drivers or people that have jobs where you can wear like headphones or whatever throughout the night, things like that. And, most of us are working class people, right? If you're not, then I expect you to be patreon.com. Put it in there. I know who you are. I see you out there in Hollywood. I know who you are. Did I just freak you out? Because I think you're sexy too, by the way. Yeah, you just let your freak flag fly there. And you never know. Could be somebody named Donnie or Demi. You never know, right? You never know who could be listening.
Right.
But anyway, so cool stuff here. Myrtle Beach, love it. On the drive down, this new book, Spellmonger. It's the Spellmonger series, all right? It's written by a guy named Terry Mancor, and he lives in North Kakalaki, so it's kind of cool. But there's a nice British man that reads it and plays it, and so it's basically the tales of this mage, and he is in his 20s as the series starts. I don't know where it ends up at. It's still going, and there's a bunch of satellite books. There's 19 books in all, and so there's all kinds of context, and there's maps of the world, and
yes, very extensive world.
And Stacey loves the way it's written. Why don't you tell him the way it's written that you like about it?
I just like how, as the story's going, he puts tons and tons of detail in it. And if he mentions something, then the story you're listening to will stop and you'll start hearing the backstory of whatever he just talked about. Like it flips back and forth in time, but you get all the detail and all the story about what you're listening to.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just really cool.
She compared it to Anne Rice.
Yeah, Anne Rice does that kind of thing where you'll be reading, then all of a sudden you'll just get this entire backstory. It'll last for like 6 chapters or something.
But it's not confusing like trying to watch The Witcher.
Right.
It's one of those things where, and we do listen to the Witcher series too, which is freaking awesome. But the Spellmonger, I give it 5 out of 5. And that's just, we're about 3/4 of the way through the first book, maybe even further than that. But man, I'm telling you, I can see the characters. I could see the world. When I could see the characters, it's cool. And the coolest thing about it is the guy talks like we do.
Right.
So there's a lot of cheek, but he still has wonderful respect for stuff. But it's very much written for adults. So it's not some teen drama or something. It's for adults, and it's really good. So give that a checkaroo. I always like to tell people cool stuff, man. So back to the hotel. Oh my God, I just heard In Too Deep from hanging out when I was like 18 years old. Do you remember that song?
No.
You don't remember Back to the Hotel?
No.
Back to the Hotel. Oh my God. Well, anyway. I used to listen to this song.
Okay.
Band was In Too Deep.
I gotcha.
It was rap.
Oh yeah, well that explains it.
That explains why you didn't hear it. All right, so I should just let Stacey do this whole thing. But listen, we stay at this nice resort. I'm not going to give the name of it because we dig the place. We've had a lot of luck there, and we've had we get the suite, so it's a couple of rooms. You got like the jacuzzi, you got the king size bed, you got a couple of big screens. You got a living room, a full kitchen. You've got 2 balconies overlooking the ocean, all this stuff, right? And this time we got put in a new tower. Now they've been building and building and building, and this place is, they are building it. It's a town. Several buildings being connected, all this stuff, really cool. And this time we were in this new wing.
Right.
And so I don't think they're completely done. But there was a few things that I'll get to in a second, or I'll let stay. But you know what? Tell them some of the minor things that were happening, and then I got to tell the story about the paranormal event.
Okay. Well, it wasn't so bad at first, but the first night we were there, we decided to have some pizza delivered so we wouldn't have to leave the room. And we ordered the pizza, and of course, they couldn't bring it up to the room. I had to go down to the lobby and get it. And nobody ever called for us to go get the pizza, and it was this big thing. And I finally figured out by using my cell phone to call the front desk that the phone in our room didn't work. But it wasn't just the phone in our room, it was the phone line in our room, because they came to switch the phone out, even though I didn't ask them to, which was kind of nice, I guess. The phone line going to our room didn't work at all, so that was kind of annoying. And then the next night at 3:00 in the morning, the fire alarm on our wall. Now, I'm not talking about smoke detectors that just go bloop, bloop, bloop when the batteries get low. The electrical, wired into the electricity of the building, fire speaker alarm started making this horrific staticky electric sound at 3:00 in the morning. Yeah, like maybe something was on fire and they couldn't let us know. And they couldn't call us to tell us if there was a fire.
So the awesome thing is they send a security officer.
Yeah.
She knocks on the door. She's sweet, but she comes in there, and we were still up, but we were kind of pretending we weren't. So we were both sitting in bed, and she comes in there and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'll just get a chair." And it's that thing. Well, I can't touch that.
So I can't fix that.
And she's like, "So what's it do?" I was like, "Listen," and it was like, zzz, zzz. And she looked over at the TV. She's like, "So you don't sleep with the TV on or anything?" I was like, "No." She's like, "So you don't have any noise or anything going, like a radio or?" No, that's not really the point. I don't know if you get the point,
right?
But that's not really the point. And she goes, "Well, I've got radios
and fans,
and yeah, I could bring a fan up. You ever run a fan? And obviously, here at home." We totally have a radio going or a TV going, and we run a fan, even though we don't need a fan. I run a fan for the sound, just that ambient sound. But for the case of this with the electricity in the wall, we're like, no, we don't. And so she calls somebody else. So then Officer Dewey comes in, and this guy, he's like, "Hey, what's going on? How you doing, bro?" And the bro thing just it gets over with me like a fart in church.
Right.
Especially when I'm sitting in bed. It's 3 a.m. There's an electrical fire about to occur in my room on the 7th floor. You know, it's sand, but it's still gonna hurt when I jump. But he's just like, "Oh, you ever try radio?" I was like, "That's what she said. I don't need a radio. We got fans too." I swear to God. So then the third person comes in. Which reminds me, you know, Wanda Sykes. Mm-hmm. So Wanda Sykes comes in next in the cop outfit. She comes in. She goes, "Lord, what's going on in here? Oh, there's people in here. I didn't know. I'm sorry, y'all. I didn't know there's people in here. Yeah, they don't want to use a fan. Y'all don't want to use a fan. Well, radio? We got radios. I heard." And me and Stacey are just looking at each other because we're both picturing their security office is nothing but like confiscated radios and fans.
Yeah, just lining the walls.
Like lining the walls. And she's just like, "Oh, snap. That's what it is? Well, they can be in here at 7 a.m. Stacey's like, "Don't send anybody to our room at 7 a.m. Just letting you know. Nobody's going to answer the door and they better not walk in." And they're like, "Oh, no, we wouldn't do that." And I was just like, "Hey, you know what? F it." I was like, just go. It's fine. We're okay. No big deal. We'll probably turn a TV on. It's fine. Are you sure? Absolutely. Crystal clear. Sure. Positive. So they go. We just live. It don't matter. So here's the best one. The next night, okay. The next night we're about to get our hashtag on, right? It's hashtag mommy daddy time for the hashtaggiest time of the weekend, and so I go to take a whiz, right? Stacey's in bed, and I think she's reading a book or something. I don't know, and Stacey's like, honey, yeah? Are you doing that? No. Do you feel anything? No. I mean, not really. Why? Come here. And I go in there, and Stacey's like, something's happening. Something paranormal's happening. And she never freaks out. She wasn't freaking out now. She was just documenting because that's Stacey. And she's like, the bed is moving. I was like, the wall is breathing. And it was just like, the whole wall was expanding and going back in and expanding.
Yes, and our whole bed was moving.
And the whole bed was moving. And I was like, hold on a second. Put your ear on the wall. So she stands up and she puts her ear on the wall and she's like, oh. And I was like, hold on a second. So here's me and Stacey, middle of the damn night, and we both get on the bed and stick our ear on the wall. And you could hear it in the other room. And this dude, man, there's some dude going, oh, yeah. Oh, man. Oh, that's it. Oh, man. And I could hear the girl, but the girl was like, I swear to God, she was like, I wonder what channel that's on. I mean, oh, God, mercy. And the bed was moving, but the girl wasn't selling at all.
No, she could have been reading a magazine.
I mean, just not selling at all.
And our whole wall was moving.
And I'm like, man, I just give up. I mean, I wouldn't be able to do,
I mean, I don't know. He sounded like he was having fun.
Yeah, but I mean, the psyche has to be hurting on that. So, that lasted about a minute.
Oh, wow.
Just saying. And that was over. So Stacey's like, let's pay him back. So, anyway, a lot of fun to be had at the hotel. Mm-hmm. It was a good time. It was a real good time. I like how Stacey will go down to the front desk when she's mad about something, man, she'll go to the front desk, and even though she could have called from the phone, and they you just have to know Stacey. They'll turn the card over. They're like, the number for the front desk is right. Stacey's like, yeah, I know that. I wanted to come down and look at you face to face. But people think I'm the bad one. It's just that when it gets bad, and especially, God bless her heart, if she's wanting me to have a week, or wanting me to have, I didn't even take a week, not because of work or psychos or anything, and if I take a week, they, get a tattoo of it or something, and they're like, yeah, you took that week back in June of 2014. So I try to take like a Friday and a Monday or something, something easy.
Right.
And the world still collapses every time that happens. Every time I take a vacation day, I swear to God, this time we're on our way, anniversary weekend. I had put in for it like, I don't know, 2 months ahead. Anniversary weekend, we're on our way down to the beach. And sure enough, now I love my boss. I really do. And it's one of those funny things that my boss he's gotten moved to another region now, and but still the best boss I ever had. I mean, as far as learning stuff from somebody, and I've talked about this before, after so long, you don't learn stuff from people, really. You pretend you do, so you sound like a good person, but most of the time, if you're good at what you do and you work your butt off, you don't really learn too much. This guy was a mountain of information, and I really learned a lot from him. We ended up gaining this great respect for each other, and he wouldn't do anything on purpose like this, but oh my God, he called me. I have yet to have a vacation day where I haven't had some crisis or some reason I get a phone call. And this time it was him and his boss, who I also love, which is lucky for them and me, because I don't mind really, but it's just comical at this point. And even better than that is my buddy, and I can't say names just in case there is somebody from my company who's like a peer. I don't want them to think that I like somebody or don't like somebody or whatever, but which I don't think that's the case. But just saying, there's a person in the human resource department I'm friends with, and he has just this uncanny knack, just this uncanny ability. The funny thing with him is, if he doesn't call me on vacation, he didn't this time, he will call me at the most compromising times. Like, it's the most, like, if it's like one of those days, right, and you've been working since like 5:30 in the morning, and you're going nuts, you've had the worst day ever, your head's pounding, it's like 4:00, you're like, you know what, I'm calling it today. I'm going to go out under a pillow somewhere. The second I'll pull into my house, he'll call, and he'll be like, hey, what's going on? I was just going to ask you about this. Where are you? Where's the camera at, man? Where is the camera? You talk about psychic abilities,
right?
This guy has them, but love these guys. It's just this whole thing going on with work right now. All these years, I consider that I've done basically the same job since I was 18, because it don't matter where you're at. If it's the same kind of thing, it's the same kind of thing. I've been hashtag Bruce Wayne job. I've been in front of people, retail, management, all this stuff, man, since I was 18 years old. And it's a hard job. It's the hardest job, man. It's, because you don't have there's no count for hours when you're salary. And, I was not clocking in when I was 18. It was commission, so if you want paid more, you work more. And so I was working 75 hours a week when I was 18 years old, and that just never stopped. I just got used to it. But and the job I have now, 7 days a week, I never turn my phone off. I'll talk to people. I don't ever make them feel bad about it, and I just keep going. And I ask a lot out of my guys. Like, I ask a lot. I have them contact me every single day, and we talk all day up until like 10 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm. Something like that.
It's late. But it works. Communication is key. Any business people out there, I think the more you communicate, the more transparent you are, the you get the point across. You know what I mean? It works. But I have a big interview. I have this big interview. And I'm trying not to be nervous about it. But, I mean, because that's my thing. I interview very well. I'm just one of those people. And, but man, there is a position. And it's the position that I've wanted since the day I stepped into this company. And it is so, I was so happy because I had it originally set up. I was going to have an interview before Christmas. I was like, thank God, because I don't have to go through the Christmas holiday worried about this. And then I got like, it's one of those deals where you get a hold of somebody and just to check on it. Because at first it was, I told them, hey, it's cool. The 20, I won't say the date, before Christmas is cool, and the date. And they're like, okay, great. So then they get a hold of me later that afternoon. And they're like, oh, how would and it's an after Christmas date be? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that'd be fantastic, wonderful, I hoped you said that the first time, but now I get to think about it all through Christmas too. So it's just, it would be a lot better if we were able to do face-to-face interviews, but it's the virtual thing. Mm-hmm. I hate not being able to be in front of people because I have just uncanny ability to read a room, and I can tell if the story isn't going well, or if if they're bored with what I'm saying or whatever. You can switch things up, and it's just like wrestling a match or whatever. You can tell, are you supposed to be a baby face, supposed to be a heel? And so virtually it's not like that. I have to do these stupid Zoom calls all the time with this program I'm in, and it's really hard doing that. But speaking of that thing, so I took this class this week, and it was really cool. It was something through Wake Forest, and it was really, I mean, listen, I am a firm believer that people have unconscious bias, and you hear a lot of people, no matter what side of things you're on, they're like, oh, no, that's just all stupid and this and that. And it's not. It don't matter what color, race, creed, whatever you are, you've got it. And I try to better myself. I really do. I try to better myself. I try to see people for people, and for their ability. And I'm pretty sure I do, but I just try to make sure I squeak all that out of me as much as possible. And this lady, Raven Solomon was her name. Man, it was one of the most entertaining classes that I've ever done in my history of taking any kind of class. It was really well done. I was like the guy speaking up the whole time and, answering all the questions. I was like sitting at the front of the class, like, yeah, teacher. It was really good stuff, man. But just really the thing, bettering yourself is always a good thing. I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. Because I'm one of those cats you wouldn't imagine. People wouldn't just point it out and go, hey, I bet John would be up for that. Trust me, because I've had my reputations before and of being, gruff or whatever. But man, it's always good to get a little better. I've just noticed myself getting more, I don't know, easy. Well, maybe that's not the right word. Gentler, kinder. Mm-hmm. Is that what you would say?
I suppose that would probably sum it up. Yes.
Well, I mean, I used to actually run them off the road,
mm-hmm.
pull them out of the car, and
right,
smash their head in between the door and the door frame. But now I just run them off the road. I mean, it's just a lot different.
It's improvement.
It's and that's what we're looking for here. we're just looking for improvement. So I don't know about you guys, but we're looking forward to Christmas.
Mm-hmm. We are.
We have absolutely blown our load on Christmas. And every kid is having the best Christmas they've ever had. I mean, I would love to be one of my kids right now.
They're getting some good stuff this year.
It's crazy.
I was pretty proud of us.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's crazy. It's going to feel really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to feel really good. I can't wait.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm looking so forward to seeing them open everything.
Yeah.
And
well, not too much longer.
I know. I mean, it's going to blow their minds.
Mm-hmm.
I truly think that we might need to be doing CPR because we just got them all this like everything you don't just bomb stuff they ask for, right? Because you got to get stuff from the heart, stuff that means a lot. Anyway, we love Christmas, and the funny thing is, my son telling the rules of our Christmas to his girlfriend, and she's just like blown away. She's just because her family just didn't do this, and it's just it's funny. I don't realize how different we are,
right,
until I hear somebody explaining the rules of our house to somebody before they come over. So on Christmas, we have all the presents out there, but what happens is everybody gets a present on their lap, right? And then we take turns. So one person opens while we all watch, and they pull it out, and we ooh and ah about it and everything. We may talk about it a little bit, and then we go to the next person. So we can all enjoy the joy that person has from their present.
And that's the time you get to tell the funny stories about how you got the present, or what happened when you tried to get it, or how many times you had to return it and get a new one,
or how many times it was stolen off the front porch.
Right, exactly.
Things like that, which has happened.
Yes.
So the best thing that's happened is I wanted my Christmas pictures this year. And I was like, you know what? We're going to have the family Christmas picture. I'm going to send it to all my peers. It's going to be we're all going to wear the same color. And the girls were so excited because I'm not that kind of guy. And I was like, I want us all wearing the Christmas sweater and, all this stuff. And me and Kyler were going to be wearing the red sweater and the khaki pants. And the girls were all wearing red dresses, including the baby. And it was just all really just wonderful. And we're going to have the Edwards family photo. And I'll be damned if we're still waiting on one of the shirts.
Oh, the mail has been horrible this year. Horrible.
I mean, I'm so upset about this. It was 2 months ago I came up with this. And
we ordered this stuff a month ago.
Yeah.
And some of it still hasn't come.
So I'm just telling everybody, because I was thinking about sending it to the patrons. I was going to put it up for just a patron only thing. And if you guys get something in mid-January, I just want you to know that it's a late Christmas, just us saying hi. I'm not big on giving spoilers, but I'm just going to say, because we talked about this on the show before, The Mandalorian, OMG, go out of your way. Again, if you have not watched The Mandalorian, shame on you. Shame on you. But you got to make it to the season finale of season 2. Okay? And if you can make it through it without crying, if you've ever seen Star Wars before, then you're a bigger woman than me. But I'll tell you who hasn't been happy. There's been something going on. We went Christmas shopping the other night, and me and Stacey were in the best mood. We were being goofballs, just having fun. And from the time we walked in, we were in Walmart on this one, but from the time we walked in Walmart, there were people yelling at each other. There were people on the phone going, "You better not ever call me again." And I mean, it kept happening. Stacey's like, "Are people angry?" I'm like, "Yeah, I noticed it too." And it was so strange. Like, it was almost like Ghostbusters 2. Like, I thought the ooze was going to start growing underneath the street.
It's like you would hear somebody's phone ring. Next thing you'd be like, "Why are you calling me? I'm in the store." I'm like, "Well, geez, maybe they didn't know you were in the store."
I don't know. I think this year stressed everybody out so much that undoubtedly not everybody feels the same about Christmas as we do.
No,
it's supposed to be a time of happiness, people.
A lot of tension out there.
Little bit of tension. But speaking of tension and good things, I've got one of the best good things of all good things ever, because I absolutely love my list.
Okay.
My list is the list of all lists. It's a list that end at list. And we might not ever be able to do a list again because this list is so cool.
Oh, okay.
I love this time of the year, and every show between now and New Year's is going to be fantastical. And speaking of New Year's, before I get into my list, on New Year's, January 1st, that'll be a Friday night, at 9 p.m. in the Eastern Standard of Time in the United States, that is. You can go to scarefestradio.com and Scarefest TV, the podcast there, little video podcast. They usually share it on Facebook too. It's easy to find. Mr. Wes Forsyth, one of our very first guests ever back on Haunted South in 2010. Great friend of ours. Just love the Forsyths to death. Really do. and we're going to be on there with the top stories of 2020. So we're going to send it to them next week, so they're all prepped up. But can't wait to do that. It's the top stories of our year that we've done. So you guys all need to tune into that and, show a little support, get involved in the chat, and have some fun with me and Stacey and Wes, as we'll be getting into some chicanery, I promise you. But as I said, this from here on out, man, it's all these great 2020 lists, because there's a lot of weird that's happened this year. And of course, on our New Year's show, we have the list, and we have a special guest. Great Antonio will be back, and he'll be giving his 2021 predictions. Maybe look at a few of the 2020 ones, where they hit, where they missed, all that good stuff. All right, so this list is one I have compiled, and it is from several different journals and papers and pages and all that good stuff. Just based on what I consider to be the 13 top archaeological finds, if you will, of 2020. And I really base these on the significance they have to our culture and the impact they have to archaeology going forward.
Okay.
And to also changing some of the paradigms. It's it might not be the top 10 list in Nature's Journal, right? But it's the top 13 of what I consider being either groundbreaking or one of those aha moments where we actually are able to change the history books.
Right.
And it seems that we have a lot of these happening more and more and more. Every year, these things happen, where for a long time, everything was kept in a nice, neat little box, and you had to go by what everybody said in the orthodoxy, like whatever it said, right? We're not going to dig deeper than this. We're not going to say this. You're going to be shunned for saying this. And honestly, a lot of those walls are coming down. And I think a lot of those walls have to come down with the advancements in science, with LIDAR and such things. I mean, you can see one of the honorable mentions was, finding an entire city in Rome that they could never have mapped out like they have now, and it's going to take them freaking forever to get it all.
Especially with that detail.
Yeah, it's
crazy.
Incredible detail that if you were just flying over, you would never think of it. And LIDAR's just come to such a point now that look at what happened in the Amazon, right? They found that there's gigantic cultures and cities that were there before the freaking jungle, and basically everything in the Amazon was planted there. It was their gardens. And so there's only so many different varieties, and it's all pretty much useful, edible type things that they have there, or like rubber trees, things they needed.
Right.
So just really everything we thought we knew, we didn't know. and I love the fact that it's going to keep going that way, because even if you think about the fact that at one point in time, there was humans all over the planet, but the sea level was much lower because of the ice age. And when that melted, obviously it covered up such a significant parts of landmass, islands, continents. And you look at what we're going to find in the future when we get advancements for like Antarctica. It's going to be even better. I mean, because there was a time it didn't have ice on it. So I mean, there's so much to come. And we always learn so much more about ourselves because of this. And I think there's some big shockers coming. But speaking of shockers, I just made my fingers in a specific pattern. I'm going to start here with number 13.
Okay.
An Ice Age structure made from bones of 60 mammoths.
I do remember this.
Scientists have found structures made from mammoth bones before, but the one found at Kostenki site near the Russian city of Voronezh is now the largest in the archaeological record. Dating back approximately 25,000 years, it's also the oldest. The structure measures 41 feet wide and was made from hundreds of woolly mammoth bones. The structure may have provided refuge from the harsh Ice Age winters and possibly a place to store and stockpile food. Pretty cool, huh?
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we found a lot throughout the world as well. Like, obviously mammoths were easy to kill.
Clearly. They must not have been very fast animals.
It's like, I don't know why there is no mammoth. Like, if they do actually clone the mammoth and bring it back, it's going to wake up screaming. It's see a human first thing. Number 12 is a bizarre circular structure discovered near Stonehenge. Archaeologists working on Salisbury Plain near Stonehenge found evidence of a gigantic circular structure dating back some 4,500 years. The structure once consisted of 20 carefully positioned pits, the largest of which measured more than 16.5 feet deep and 32 to 66 feet wide. That's a big margin of error, by the way.
Yes.
Forming a circle, the pits were on average around 2,835 feet from the center point and is now considered the biggest prehistoric structure ever found in Britain.
Wow.
Its purpose is unknown, but it could have been used to designate a sacred place. Yeah. Go take your staff in the middle of that son of a bitch. See what happens, folks. See what happens.
That's crazy.
Number 11. I love this one. God, I love this one. Archaeologists excavating in Shandong, Sichuan province have discovered, that's China, by the way, if you couldn't tell from my Sichuans, have discovered over 6,000 ancient tombs, spanning more than 2,000 years. The tombs date from various dynasties and were discovered during construction work for the Sichuan Zhaochuan, I apologize so much, Innovation and Technology Park. Boy, but they were happy. Excavations began in 2015, but the results of the ongoing discoveries have finally been announced by the Chengdu Institute of Cultural Relics and Archaeology. The tombs range from the Warring States period of 475 BC, the Qin dynasty of 221 to 207 BC, the Han dynasty of 202 BC to 8220, the Five Dynasties and 10 Kingdoms period, AD 907 to 979, the Ming dynasty, AD 1368 to 1644, and the Qing dynasty of AD 1636 to 1912. Most of the tombs are carved into small cliff face as rock pit tombs or constructed from brick and have contained tens of thousands of pieces of pottery, porcelain, copper, iron, glass, coins, and stone artifacts. The team have also discovered cultural relics such as gilt bronze knife, Buddha statues, painted figurines, and painted miniature pottery houses. One notable discovery is a relatively well-preserved tomb from the late Han Dynasty named the M94 Cliff Tomb. It contains 86 burial objects and hundreds of coins. An associate researcher at the Chengdu Institute of Cultural Relics and Archaeology said the tomb will help us construct the archaeological cultural sequence and the funeral behaviors, rituals, and concepts of the Shudia tombs in the late Han Dynasty and the Three Kingdoms period. It's pretty awesome.
That's pretty incredible. I mean, think about how long that area was used as a burial place. I mean, from BC all the way up to 1912.
Yeah.
And then somehow in the last 100 years, I guess it was just...
Well, China is so rich with archaeological treasures, and it's so hidden, right? There's such a big veil of mystery over anything from China that, I mean, they have some of the most amazing archaeological sites. They have like the giant caves, and they have like places that are forbidden to even go to. They have, there's pyramids in China. I mean, look that one up, folks. And you're never going to hear about it because that's in one of those areas where, for whatever reason, they won't let us go.
Right.
And we had people fly over it before, years and years and years ago, but they will not open up on any of that, which makes it just begs that question again. Why is it such a mystery? Why do they keep this stuff from us? It's almost like there's some small group that cares not about borders. They care more about the suppression of truth from the human race.
Right.
Honestly, it just seems that way to me. We can't agree on anything. We can't agree on the price of tea in China, but we can agree on let's keep this stuff from people.
Right.
All right, so it's time for the top 10. And coming in at number 10, man, ain't no party like a turkey party. I'm telling you, you can't have any kind of top 10, top 100, top 10,000, top 3 without something archaeological from Turkey, because Turkey is the place, man. My God, there's a lot of stuff in Turkey. It's just nonstop. You can't. If I could just go to one place and have full, carte blanche over everything, it'd be Turkey. That is this. The Luwian Royal Inscription. Okay. While conducting a service survey of the ancient mound site of Turkmen in southern Turkey, a team led by archaeologists James Osborne and Michelle Massa of the University of Chicago made a surprising discovery in a canal not far from the mound. A stone stela bearing hieroglyphs in Luwian, a relative of the Hittite language based on the shapes of the glyphs. The inscription has been dated to the 8th century BC.
Wow.
It records the military achievements of great King Hartapu, a ruler previously known from the inscriptions found at 2 nearby hilltop sanctuaries. Those enigmatic monuments offer no details about the dates of his reign or the extent of his realm. The new inscription, Osborne explains, establishes Hartapu as a Neo-Hittite leader who claims to have conquered the wealthy kingdom of Phrygia in west-central Anatolia, and in a single year to have defeated a coalition of 13 kings. We now know almost certainly that Hartapu's capital city was the Turkmen Karahuak, is what it looks like. And he was allegedly powerful enough to defeat Figra in battle. Basically, when you come on down to this, with the ceramics they discovered at the mound, they say it's around 1400 BC. It had grown from a small settlement to a regional center sprawling over more than 300 acres. During the succeeding centuries and throughout Hartapu's reign, Osborne said the city probably continued to be one of the largest in Anatolia. Even in a country as archaeologically diverse as Turkey, he says, it's not every day that an archaeologist finds massive Bronze and Iron Age city that has never been touched. And that was what the big deal was. Mm-hmm. It's a huge, sprawling metropolis of the ancient world, so to speak, but it was completely, or is completely, untouched.
That's crazy.
So the stuff they find there, you can imagine, just amazing. And it's just right out in the middle of a damn field. So
that's insane. I think it's funny that they have all these inscriptions and nobody that did it thought to date them.
Yeah.
That seems like an oversight.
Yeah, a little bit. Number 9, again, what would a list be without a little bit of Mayan in it? Mm-hmm. This one's pretty crazy, though. The oldest and largest ceremonial structure in the Maya world has been hiding in plain sight on a Mexican cattle ranch near the Guatemala border. It just looks like part of the natural landscape, says University of Arizona archaeologist Takeshi Inamata. He and his team were studying a low-resolution LiDAR images of the region collected by the Mexican government when they were astonished to come across what seemed to be a huge earthen platform. A subsequent high-resolution LiDAR survey of the site showed that the platform stretches almost a mile long and rises as high as 50 feet. Radiocarbon dating suggests that Maya people constructed the ritual space between 1000 and 800 BC. Number 8, this one we went into deeply on the show, but it's still worth pulling the string. Mm-hmm. The discovery of a 41,000-year-old cord fragment in France suggests Neanderthals invented string. Mm-hmm. Prior to this discovery, the oldest example of cord technology came from Israel and dated to 19,000 years old. The cord fragment consists of multiple fibers that were twisted into yarn that were then twisted back to form a cord. Archaeologists believe the string was used to attach a flake to a handle, or it came from a bag or other device used to carry a flake found next to the cord. It's very, very cool. They have the fragment pictures out there. Mm-hmm. And, the Neanderthal knuckle draggers that just drooled all the time were smart enough to make string.
Yeah, because it's not really it is a simple design, but it's still intricate enough. You have to do it right for it to work. I
firmly believe that 41,000 years ago was not the first time they made string.
Right.
Okay. Considering there's a story that we'll be having of 200,000 years ago, when they were smart enough to keep bugs out of their bed.
Right.
Not to give a spoiler, but I dare say that we thought about, maybe if I take this tail and wrap this to this other tail, I could put this around this boulder and pull it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that and like discovery of the wheel. Mm-hmm. It seems like cart does not move good with square. It just seems like it would be. It doesn't seem like a far stretch,
right?
Even if you make, I don't know, a snowball. Mm-hmm. Or see something rolling, which things roll in nature.
Right. There's circles in nature. Yeah,
there's circles. So one would think that caveman, drooling out there, fingering his butt, whatever, would see something rolling and go, something about this seems important. Who could not know what is, but feel important. Oh well, smell my finger. So anyway, it's like more and more we find out that the hunter-gatherer thing is, it happened, but we also gathered a lot more than hunter-gatherer. I mean, they keep finding cities that date back further and further and further and all this stuff. It's just, if you study human nature, the very fact of people liking to do stuff together, it's just, I don't know. I think the next few years are going to be very telling in archaeology.
I think so.
As I said, this list is going to be things that were culturally significant to me, okay? Or to us, to me, to the ruler of all archaeology. So number 7 is not particularly old, so to speak. I love the ones from 200,000 years. I like my ladies a little bit older, 200,000 years old. But this one's awesome, just freaking awesome. This is the Red Lion Stage in London. It's the oldest playhouse in England, which is just awesome.
Yes, I vaguely remember this story.
Archaeologists have uncovered what they believe are the remains of the Red Lion, the earliest purpose-built playhouse in England, which dates to the 1560s. Prior to this, playhouses were temporary creations, generally set up in yards or inns or within great houses. The Red Lion was built under direction of a grocer named John Brain, and until its discovery was known primarily from a pair of lawsuits he filed alleging shoddy workmanship by the carpenters who helped construct it. The later lawsuit, filed in 1569, mentions a farmhouse called and known by the name of the Sign of the Red Lion, which is cool, that has seating and a stage measuring 40 feet north to south and 30 feet east to west. Wow. Guided in part by land deeds that placed the Red Lion on the border of Whitechapel and Stepney parishes in East London, a team from the University College London's Archaeology Southeast unearthed a timber structure closely matching the dimensions noted in the lawsuit. The team also discovered a number of post holes, which they have dated to the mid-16th century. Surrounding the stage, the post may have supported scaffolding or galleried seating. Some had assumed the Red Lion would be round or like an octagon, says lead archaeologist Stephen White, but it actually looks very reminiscent of certain European theaters that were operating in the 16th century, where you have these types of enclosed rectangular spaces. The Red Lion doesn't appear to have enjoyed a very lengthy career as a playhouse, but it does seem to have served as a prototype for the theater in Shoreditch, larger than the Red Lion. The theater was built by Brain in 1576 in partnership with his brother-in-law, the actor and theatrical impresario James Burbage, and premiered a number of William Shakespeare's early works.
Wow.
Burbage's son Richard was a close friend of Shakespeare and played a lead role in many of his plays.
I'm sure it didn't last long because of the shoddy workmanship.
Well, I wonder if some of those workers right now are like, coming back and being like, funny enough, you can still find it, huh? How's that for shoddy, you dick? But I just think it's awesome. Look, here's a.
Oh yeah, that's really cool. That's cool.
The thing about places like London and Rome and what is under your feet, and then what's under the feet there.
Right.
The thing is, like you can go to Paris, man. And you can go down, it's like, well, here's a good one, Jerusalem. Jerusalem, they can go down and they're like, okay, here's a building from this period. And then they go below that, and well, here's a building from this period. And further and so on and so on.
Right.
It's just mind-boggling to me
right.
that it's like that. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I did the wrong thing with my life. I mean, you're just like me.
I know.
Wouldn't you much rather us be held up in a hotel somewhere on a 4-year dig, finding out the secrets of yesterday? I'm just saying.
Oh yeah.
It's just such a passion. And with number 6, this one's pretty cool. And there was a big story this past year over that melting glacier and the Viking Pass in Norway, where they were able to find all kinds of stuff that was really not, disturbed, and it was pretty awesome, being able to find stuff that well preserved.
Yeah, didn't they find like cloth and everything?
Oh
right?
Yeah. Everything. Well, this is the year of the Viking, pretty much, and last few years have been quite a big jump in interest. I think in the Viking culture, and it's always been one of those mysterious things, right? Other than the sagas. Which, very few survive there too. We don't know a whole lot about the Vikings because of the lack of writings and whatnot. But in Northern Europe and Greenland, the largest Viking DNA study ever
was conducted in 2020. So the Viking DNA has revealed a wealth of information, offering new insights into the Viking genetic diversity and travel habits. The ambitious research analyzed DNA taken from 442 skeletons discovered at more than 80 Viking sites across northern Europe and Greenland. The genomes were then compared with genetic database of thousands of present-day individuals to try to ascertain who the Vikings really were and where they ventured. One of the project's primary objectives was just to better understand the Vikings. It turns out that the roving bands of raiders and traders, traditionally thought to have come only from Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, were far more genetically diverse than expected. According to Esk Willerslev of the University of Copenhagen, one of the most unexpected results was that the Viking age of exploration may have actually been driven by outsiders. The researchers found that just prior to the Viking Age and during its height between 8800 and 1050, genes flowed into Scandinavia from people arriving there from Eastern and Southern Europe, and even from Western Asia. In contrast to the traditional image of the light-haired, light-eyed Viking, the genetic evidence shows that dark hair and eyes were far more common among Scandinavians of the Viking Age than they are today. Vikings were not restricted to genetically pure Scandinavians, says Willerslev. That explains me. But we're a diverse group of peoples in diverse ancestry. Funny enough, the ancestry they're talking about that really goes into the Scandinavian, as my DNA markers have been revealed over the years, and they always continuously update. Originally it was like primarily Scandinavian, and then it started getting a little bit of the European,
right,
and it's Norway, Green. It's got all that,
right.
And so that's funny. I wonder if that has anything to do with some of the studies they're doing, because they're doing the studies of these old culture and all this. That all goes into a database.
It seems like that sort of DNA would make sense because when the Vikings, they of course traveled and raided all over, they spread their DNA everywhere,
romanced.
But didn't they bring people back with them from other countries?
Yeah, so. and their slavery wasn't traditional slavery.
No.
I think their slaves took part in culture, and it was I mean, yes, they were slaves. It was terrible. They were taken from their homeland, but I think you could rise in prominence.
Right,
and it seemed like if you're going to be a slave, might not be the. We always make the joke of because we found out about the Viking sizes in one of our little studies we read, and my favorite thing is hearing Stacey go, "Oh no, not me, not right here, little old me by myself."
Oh, Vikings come to raid and pillage our village? Let me just unlock the door. Hold on.
We're terrible people. And for example, now this one really goes into my DNA and your DNA, okay? Two individuals who were buried in Scotland's Orkney Islands with Viking grave goods and in traditional Viking style were surprisingly determined to be genetically linked to the Picts of Scotland and inhabitants of Ireland. But, that goes right with the whole DNA markers.
It does.
It's really, really crazy. Viking raiding parties departing from a given country, the study found, tended to journey consistently to a particular destination. Expeditions from Sweden usually went eastward to the Baltic states, Poland, and Ukraine. Vikings from Norway tended to sail to Iceland, Greenland, and Ireland. And those from Denmark predominantly ventured to England. The study also determined that Viking expeditions sometimes comprised a group of close-knit, even related individuals. Analysis of 41 skeletons from 2 ship burials in Salmi, Estonia, indicates that they likely hailed from a small village in Sweden, and that 4 were brothers, entombed alongside one another. Isn't that pretty cool?
That is very cool. And you're right, it has been a lot of discoveries like that this past year, just all Viking related with ruins and DNA.
Well, I think funding, but comes available with interest in something, right?
Right.
So people are more likely to go, well, everybody loves that. Well, they'll donate to this, or whatever. So I'm behind it. I would love to know more.
Yeah, me too. I know we were talking about updating the DNA. Every time my DNA gets updated, I get just a little bit more of the Sweden in there.
Yeah,
just a little bit.
One cool thing is years ago, I said, "You're Portuguese." It was like, because she just looked like, I can't explain it, but you would just have to know Stacey like I know Stacey.
Mm-hmm.
And at certain times, Stacey looks very Brazilian to me. Like, just depends on what we're doing. And very Portuguese, so to speak. And she keeps getting more and more and more and more of that too.
Yep.
But she's got a lot of the south of France in her.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, that's where the women don't wear no tops. It just explains a whole lot. Just explains so much about Stace. We're in the top 5 now, pal. Number 5 comes from one of your favorite places.
Okay.
Saqqara.
Oh.
A little Egyptian time.
Some Egyptian.
Within 3 deep burial shafts in a section of Saqqara necropolis known as the Area of Sacred Animals, archaeologists have unearthed 100 vividly painted wooden coffins containing the mummified remains of individuals who traveled to the afterlife some 2,500 years ago. The sealed sarcophagi were found stacked atop one another alongside 40 statues of the funerary deity Tha-Sokar Osiris and a bronze sculpture of the lotus flower god Nefertum. Although the shafts were reopened multiple times in antiquity to enter more people, researchers have dated all the burials to the 26th dynasty, 688 to 525 BC, based on names inscribed on the coffins. These kinds of shafts, which contain many burials, possibly for a family or a group, were common during this period, says Mustafa Waziri, Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities. We think the owners of these coffins are the priests and high officials of the temple of the cat goddess, Bastet, which was really, really crazy.
Yes, I do remember that discovery.
And
there were tons, very well preserved.
And the hauntingly preserved. The colors and whatnot. They had such a artistic eye, and they had so much master over colors and everything. They're just it's just very creepy to walk into something like that.
Isn't it amazing how many things they can still find in Egypt?
Well, yeah, that goes with that whole under your feet thing.
I know. As long as the archaeological digs have been going on there, and they're still finding so many things.
Well, speaking of that, I'll direct everybody to something I love. There's a YouTube site, and I've talked about him several times in the past, Jimmy from Bright Insight. So go find Bright Insight. Jimmy it's been a fun journey. I've been watching him since the first, pretty much. And at first, he was like trying to find something new in life. He was kind of fed up. He had the good job. He was making pretty good money. He had the wife and all this stuff. Something just didn't feel right. He was just feeling unfulfilled. He couldn't really explain it. He had no reason to be depressed, but he just was. And so he talked his wife into moving, and they moved, and he started doing some of these videos and looking into things. And at first it was a hodgepodge. He was like going to this thing or this thing, maybe UFOs, maybe this. He ended up landing on pretty much the antiquities, and there was a civilization before, and all this stuff I'm very intrigued by. And he lost a wife. Now he travels the world. He just went to Egypt and all this stuff. It was just like, it's been a really cool journey, but this last one you should really watch. There's a live stream, and it's a pretty lengthy video, but he explains everything he did in his 3 weeks in Egypt, and he broke so many rules. I don't know if they'll actually let him back, but he was not supposed to film in certain places, and he's putting it all on YouTube. And he's like, yeah, I filmed. I had night vision and everything.
You're going to go visit Egypt, and his picture's just going to be on the wall.
Yeah.
Like, do not let this man enter.
Oh, it's hilarious. It was like thing after thing after thing of stuff he wasn't supposed to do.
Right.
So Bright Insight's a really cool channel, though, so check that out. All right, number 4 is not particularly that they're such a big find as it is how it speaks to the future of being able to date things. Since the 1990s, biochemist Richard Evershed of the University of Bristol has been trying to find a way to accurately radiocarbon date ceramic artifacts, but it's taken nearly 3 decades for technology to catch up with his vision. Archaeologists have been using pottery styles to date artifacts and sites for decades, but these dates had to be confirmed using methods such as radiocarbon dating of associated materials and dendrochronology. The analysis of tree rings. Everybody knows what that is. If you watch, what's the show? The digging show.
Island.
Oak Island. We call it the digging show at the house, so it's hard. Evershed's new technique allows researchers to directly radiocarbon date animal fat residue on pottery. His team is able to isolate compounds from samples of pottery that weigh as little as 2 grams and to detect the minuscule amount of fatty acid carbon remaining in the residues left by milk, cheese, or meat.
Wow.
Being able to directly date pottery this way offers archaeologists a novel option. It gives you a new anchor point, says Evershed. As proof of concept, his team used the method at sites with well-established chronologies. One of these is an elevated wooden path that ran through a wetland in Somerset, England, known as the Sweet Track Site. Dendrochronology, carried out in the 1980s, had previously revealed that construction of the track began in the winter of 3807 BC. Dates from pottery found near the track match the date obtained through dendrochronology. At the early Neolithic site in Turkey, dates from 4 pottery sheds also match the site's known chronology. Evershed hopes the technique will allow researchers to learn more about the origins of animal domestication. It could also reveal when changes in prehistoric diets, such as the adoption of dairy products, took place. The best part, says Evershed, is that the pottery is found all over the world, and therefore it's a technique that can be applied anywhere to any culture.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a game changer.
It could be. Mm-hmm.
And just the very fact of being able to do that. Sometimes, I mean, that's what they find, and they don't find any organic material with it. So there's some question, hey, was this here before or after or whatever? So
right.
I think it's pretty neat, man.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
All right, number 3 could be number 1. Again, this one could, oh God, this is so big. Evidence like stone tools, butchered bones, fire pits, and cave paintings provide a glimpse into the past. But archaeologists often struggle to uncover some of the more mundane aspects of prehistoric life. This is why the discovery of rudimentary beds at a rock shelter in Lubombo Mountains near South Africa is so important, as it showed how humans slept some 227,000 years ago. These beds were made from bundles of grass, played atop a layer of ash. In addition to providing comfort and a clean insulating surface, this setup kept the bugs away, as ash repels crawling insects. Beds like these were often burned to rid the campsite of pests and then topped off with a fresh layer of grass. Again, this is 227,000 years ago.
That's crazy.
I mean, good Lord. I'm sorry, I don't see a whole lot of monkeys out there burning their damn bed and putting something else on there for the bugs. I'm pretty sure they're still picking them off each other.
Right.
So 227,000 years ago, we were using very intelligent means to have comfort and have our beds and everything. 227,000 years ago, just going to say it again. That's a long freaking time.
Right.
So, we've had little ice ages and stuff since then. So it's just so much out there. So much out there we don't know. Number 2 really falls into my whole cultural impact because of the paradigms and everything that and the constructs that we have on things. The 9,000-year-old remains of a young woman found buried with her big game hunting toolkit suggests the division of labor by gender was more equitable in the past than is often assumed. The woman, who died between the age of 17 and 19, lived in the Andean highlands in South America, and she likely used her stone projectile points to take down vacuna. Animal processing tools found in the woman's grave also suggest she butchered her prey. Wow. The scientists who made the discovery also reviewed the archaeological literature, finding a batch of cases in which women were buried alongside big game hunting gear. As the authors put it, modern gender constructs often do not reflect past ones, with scientists making uncritical assumptions about past gender roles. Very, very cool. And look, guys, anybody who has been married for any length of time, does it really surprise you that there was a woman out there like hunting the big game? It doesn't surprise me a bit, especially in a time you had to kill your food. Right. If you are talking hunter-gatherer, so to speak, of course the women are going to be hunting. Of course they're going to also know and be part of that. I mean, there's no house to tend to, right? Right. I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't have thought that they would have been part of it anyway. What were they doing? Like sewing with their
raising the children? Yeah,
I don't. They had string. So it wasn't far off, but still, I don't know. I'd say the children are part of it too. I'd have them out there as bait. Where's the baby hanging in that tree over there?
Wasn't that like a couple of years ago? They had the grave, the Viking warrior grave, and they had to go back and say, "Oh, this was a woman." Yeah, and because they just naturally assumed right off the bat that it was a man, but then I guess they did more study on it and realized that it was in fact a woman.
Yeah, so. Man. Yeah, just don't undersell the chicks. Okay, my number 1 comes from Nature. And, that's a huge publication to be a part of. Archaeologists excavating a cave in the mountains of central Mexico have unearthed evidence that people occupied the area more than 30,000 years ago.
Wow.
Suggesting that humans arrived in North America at least 15,000 years earlier than thought. The discovery, which includes hundreds of ancient stone tools, is backed up by a fresh statistical analysis that incorporates data from other sites, but the conclusion has stirred controversy among some researchers.
Of course.
The first humans in America came from the East Asia, but when they began to arrive, it is hotly debated. Some researchers think that it could have been as early as 130,000 years ago, although most of the archaeological evidence supporting this theory is disputed. For instance, some of the stone artifacts are so simple that skeptics say they were probably produced by natural geological process rather than people. The mainstream view is that the peopling of Americas began 15,000 or 16,000 years ago based on genetic evidence and artifacts found at sites including the 14,000-year-old Monte Verde in Chile. The latest discoveries published on July 22nd in Nature questioned that consensus. Since 2012, a team excavating a cave in Mexico, which is 2,740 meters above sea level in the country's Astillero Mountains, the researchers found almost 2,000 stone tools, 239 of which were embedded in the layers of gravel that have been carbon dated to between 25,000 and 32,000 years old. There are so few of these oldest tools that Ardilan thinks the site was visited only occasionally, perhaps used as a refuge every few decades during particularly severe winters. At the height of the last ice age, 26,000 years ago, North America would have been a dangerous place. There must have been horrible storms, hail, snow, he says. He adds that the cave is well insulated and could have provided shelter to any humans who were around to witness the blizzards. It's really cool. It's worth going and looking more of what they found. It's got all kinds of stuff. You can look at it at nature.com and just look up the article of controversial cave discoveries suggest humans reached America much earlier than thought. Now, anybody who has got into the Graham Hancock stuff and has read, even the latest book, which is America Before, it's just really, that's what it's all about.
Right.
And the fact that the evidence is really overwhelming. They have to word it in certain ways in mainstream articles because they hate it. They cannot stand. People have lost their entire careers. They've been shunned only to be, have everybody like later on go, oh, I'm sorry, you were right.
Right.
And this happened over and over and over. The one story I've never heard is someone not be vindicated.
That's true.
It's always comes down to a story of being vindicated because we just don't know, but we do know the fact that the story you were taught, they came over the land bridge, but that land bridge was there more than once. And, they also seem to have come from the bottom somehow, probably in boats that they traveled the world in.
I love how when you were reading that, you said that the people that dispute the findings say that the stone tools that's supposedly the evidence were too simple, and they thought that they were made by natural means. But every stone tool that they find in an archaeological dig, to me, just looks like a stone. Like they'll just hold up a rock and be like, "Look, it was a carving tool." Yeah. And so look, they all look like that.
Well, as long as it falls into their area, then they're fine, right? It's just it's ridiculous. But this is awesome. This was in Nature, which is if you get published in Nature, it's peer reviewed. It's the real deal. And to me, that's number one because that changes history. Right.
You have to start looking at everything now a little differently.
Yeah, and it makes it okay to do that. So then we have somebody push the envelope a little bit further and a little bit further, and eventually we get a better map of what our history really is. Right. Although we still have, we're still barely scratching the surface of what I believe existed before sea Middle Earth. But that is my list, and
it's very interesting.
That's it for halftime. I think it's about time to get to the back half, the back nine. You ready for the back nine?
Absolutely.
Let's do it.
All right, so let's get back to the news.
Let's do it.
This first story is about Antarctica and how more than 30,000 tremors have rocked Antarctica in the last 3 months.
Wow.
Now, this information comes from Chilean scientists, so it's probably true.
Yeah, Chile, man. And long-time listeners of the show know I love Chile. They just seem to not give any Fs
and they're just like, yeah, here's UFOs. And here's this, and I love this guy.
So some scientists from the University of Chile have been studying an area around the Bransfield Strait. Now, this area, there are several tectonic plates and microplates that kind of meet near the strait, and it's a 60-mile wide strait between the South Shetland Islands and the Antarctic Peninsula.
Right.
And they're used to there being tremors there. Obviously, there are a lot of tectonic plates. There are frequent rumblings. But this past 3 months have been notably unusual with 30,000, which is ridiculous.
Godzilla.
And there was one that was even up to a magnitude of 6. So there was a stronger one. They claim it's a 20-fold increase.
Wow.
So, they're not exactly sure what's happening. Of course, this peninsula is one of the fastest warming places on Earth, and they closely monitor it because,
it is
it's
Godzilla.
changing the climate's impact, on the ice and stuff. They have absolutely no idea what's causing it. They have no proof that it's having any significant effects on the stability of any of the ice caps or anything like that. But just the fact that the activity increased so much in the last few months is just a little bit odd.
Well, not to screw with anybody who's really into climate change, but the climate changes. And historically, we've had ice age, we've had, periods of warming, we've had oceans go up and down, and it's just what happens. And there is a lot of debate out there about, it's like a mile deep ice sheet or whatever, but there's been a lot of debate over how long it's been like that. Some go way back on the ice covering Antarctica, and then some say there was a period like some 6,000 years ago that it could have been clean for the most part and then built up. But regardless, you got to look at some of the things like the Perry Reese map that's out there. A lot of stuff in the 16th century, and there's a lot of maps in the 1500s that were based on previous maps. And there's different ones. I mean, several out there. There's some that are just unbelievable. And you got to think, we had not actually discovered, quote unquote, discovered Antarctica yet.
Right.
And yet there was all these maps and globes that had this landmass down there, this continent, and they did not show it covered with ice.
And it was a very accurate representation.
That's the thing.
Yeah. We
didn't know that until, more recent times, but some of them are incredibly accurate, down to the fact of it being like a separate landmass, with the water going in between and all this stuff that they shouldn't have known if there had been ice there. Craziness. It's just craziness. Now, not every one is as accurate as, there's a couple that are pretty accurate, but what time period did these come from? Where did these maps come from? It's very cool. But one of the things, and the reason it makes me think of that, is someone talking about, how it could have moved its position, the continent, basically like think of an orange, and if the peel wasn't, completely connected, you can move the peel around on top of the orange kind of thing. And there's something that happens in nature that is not really with the tectonic plates as much as it just, moving around and whatnot. With tremors would do that.
Right.
So in a different temperate zone, obviously that would affect that. And so there's a lot there to unpack.
Yeah, there really is. I know they said that the strait itself, the area they're watching, it used to only increase in width at a rate of about a third of an inch a year, like 7 or 8 millimeters a year, but it's now expanding at a rate of 6 inches a year because of these tremors. And if you think about that, that's just 1 year. If that keeps up, think about, in several hundred years, how different that whole landscape's going to look.
Well, I tend to think that, again, smoke, fire. I tend to think that when there's a lot of interest coming into something, that it's because of the universal muse. I think that in the past few years, we have seen in this field almost monthly things from Antarctica, right?
you'll see people that always study Google Maps and everything. Like, hey, this looks like a crash site. This looks like this looks like that. Or you get word out that something happened here, or there was UFO battles under the ground, and whatever, right? There's a hole to the middle of the earth, and, it's been story after story after story. Of course, it's like the last frontier. It's interesting because we don't know that there's going to be part of that.
Right.
We're going to build stories and romance because we can't see it. We can't go there. We can't visit there. But I do believe something's going on. I do believe that they've went out of their way once again to hide it from us. So I do think there's something there that is hidden, something that they don't want us to know. And I would say that these tremors also don't just happen for no reason. Either we're getting ready to have a pole flip, or
right.
It's something to really watch and keep your eye on.
I agree. All right, so let's move on and let's talk about this next story that could also be an omen of something bad to come. And this is about the blood of San Gennaro, the patron saint of Naples.
Oh my God.
Failed to liquefy this pastime despite 2 rounds of praying by the faithful. So of course the residents in southern Italy, they feel like this is a omen of bad things to come, and we have heard of this before.
Yeah, we have, haven't we?
We have. So it's a vial that contains the dried blood of the saint, and they put it on public display 3 times a year, and they pray for it to liquefy. They take it out to the public normally on September 19th, the Saturday before the first Sunday in May, and on December 16th. So this past December 16th, they brought it out. Everyone prayed 2 rounds, hours and hours of praying, and it still did not liquefy. Now, they did say that fewer people than normal were allowed into the cathedral because of the restrictions, but it just didn't happen this time. Now, some notable past events that happened when the blood failed to liquefy. According to this article, in 1980, when it failed to liquefy in September of 1980, there was a massive earthquake that hit southern Italy 2 months later, killing more than 3,000 people. It failed to liquefy in September of 1939 when World War II broke out, and during a cholera outbreak in 1973. So every time it's failed to liquefy, maybe not every time, but it does occasionally point to horrible things happening.
And we have to look at signs, because remember, like we talked about a year ago, we were joking about how 1920, 1820, 17, 20, 16, 20, there was always a big plague that broke out. And we're like, what's going to happen in 2020? What plague will it be? and yeah. Think we know what that one was.
Yep, we figured that one out.
So we got to look to the past sometimes. So, I may or may not have got some letters last time we covered one of these. I think I named the episode something Holy Saint Brains or something.
Yes.
But this is, something to keep an eye on. Once again, folks, just
because I believe you suggested that. Never mind.
Yeah. So do you believe in omens? Do you believe in signs? And if so, then this is one to maybe keep an eye on.
I mean, it is an unusual quote miracle because it does liquefy, and scientists can't explain how that happens because it does appear to be dried blood in the vial, and for them to bring it out for it to liquefy sometimes but not others, it's just, that's weird.
It really is. It's weird for it to do it in the first place.
It is. I agree. All right, so let's move on and let's talk about a serial killer.
Oh, boy.
So this is an article about the Zodiac killer and how his 1969 cipher puzzle that he had sent to the press has finally been solved.
Oh, really?
Yes. So for those who don't know the story of the Zodiac killer, it's a serial killer still unknown. Nobody has any idea his real identity, from Northern California from the late 1960s, early 1970s. And he mostly targeted young couples, like cab drivers, and he liked to taunt the police and the press, and he would send letters and cards to the San Francisco Bay Area press, and in those letters and cards he named himself the Zodiac Killer, and he would always sign it with this circle with a cross in it. It was kind of the symbol for Zodiac watches, which I think you can still get. But they had this long unsolved puzzle that was sent to the San Francisco Chronicle, and it had not been cracked until just now. And I believe the message says, "I hope you are having lots of fun in trying to catch me. I am not afraid of the gas chamber because it will send me to paradise all the sooner because I now have enough slaves to work for me. So they called this the 340 cipher. It was just a jumble of letters, numbers, and symbols. Still doesn't reveal his actual name, but a team, I think it was just regular people, they just put the ciphers out there, decoded it, sent it to the FBI, and they did confirm that that was the message. And so they've added that now to this unsolved case file. I don't think it really got them any closer to figuring out who it was. It's unclear if this guy's even still alive. He'd be pretty elderly by now. So I don't know. It's crazy. It's still an ongoing investigation. It's funny that he was so blatant about it.
Yeah, well, after all these years to actually finally do that, that's insane.
Yeah.
That's really insane.
Yeah.
But the Zodiac Killer inspired, unfortunately, all kinds of things like Clint Eastwood movies and whatnot. But just a horrifying thing that people endured. And
right. Well, clearly, whoever this was pretty intelligent. So I don't feel like if they haven't found any clues to who he is by now, I don't think that they're going to just all of a sudden uncover a mistake or something,
right,
and figure out who it was.
No, well, they didn't think they would do that cipher either, though. So
well, true, and it was private citizens that did that.
Yeah.
So
that's more the reason to share this kind of stuff with the citizens, because we've got the biggest think tank ever with the information of the computer age, and you can put this stuff out there, and there's some introvert in a basement somewhere that is just able to do that. I mean, listen, man, you have these people who are just geniuses, and they can play the piano without ever reading music and just sit down the first time, right? Just happens. It just happens. We can't explain it. We can't explain the intelligence of the human brain or why certain things happen, but that's why they need to share all this.
Well, a lot of times people like that are people that don't function well, like in school or social society, so they don't achieve jobs of like code breakers for the FBI and things like that, but they are super intelligent.
Look at all the geniuses in history. All the inventors, and you go back to their schooling, and it's like, well, they didn't do well in school, they dropped out in grade school, they did this, but they invented air.
Right. Right. Thank God for that guy.
Yeah. Thank God for that guy.
All right, let's go on to some discoveries. And I thought this one was really interesting. It's about a 5,000-year-old relic from the Great Pyramid that was discovered in a cigar box in Scotland.
Oh, yeah. Leave it to the Scots.
So this is one of only 3 objects that have ever been recovered from inside the Great Pyramid. This was a trio of items known as the Dixon relics, and they were first discovered in 1872 inside the pyramid's Queen's Chamber by an engineer named Wayneman Dixon, and he was assisted by his friend named James Grant. And at the time, the discovery was widely reported. So the relics they found a ball, a small dolerite ball, a copper hook, and a fragment of like cedar wood.
And MacGyver built a tank with it.
I know, it was amazing. And so Dixon took the ball and hook, and Grant took the piece of wood because he was just the assistant, so he didn't get the good stuff. So after James Grant's death in 1895, his collections were bequeathed to the University of Aberdeen. And the piece got put into the museum's collections, but it was attributed to the wrong collection. It accidentally got put with like some Asian artifacts. And so a curatorial assistant was reviewing items in the museum collections when she came across an item that just didn't seem to belong. Now, she is originally from Egypt, and she spent a decade working at the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. And she noticed this cigar box with the country's former flag on it. So it was in a cigar box with an Egyptian flag on it. And she opened it up to find some wood inside, and she went back and cross-checked the museum records, and she realized that she stumbled upon this lost artifact from the Great Pyramid of Giza. So she just couldn't believe it when she realized what was in it. I mean, this thing has been missing for, years, since 1946, I believe.
Yeah, and the people have longed for it because of the fact we can radiocarbon date now, which gets us to the reason I already knew this story, because it's really cool.
According to this article, it says the process of radiocarbon dating has revealed that The wood was from around 3341 to 3094 BC, which they claim is centuries before the construction of the Great Pyramid. But they haven't got to do, because of restrictions, any extensive further study on, what they found or anything. So hopefully they'll get to put some more new technology to it and get some more insight on it. It's just cool that it was found after it had been lost for so long.
The big tomb of Khufu or whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this predates all that, and that really screws with them hard.
It does.
I would say they probably lied about the age anyway. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like asking somebody that's trying to preserve the date of the pyramid, what that dated to is kind of like asking some guy you pulled over how many beers he's had tonight.
Right,
if he says 2, it's 12. And so the very fact that they dated that to before the construction of the pyramid is comical to me.
Right.
I mean, I know you could cut down a tree and use that wood, later on or whatever. I mean, yeah, I get that, but it's just weird, man.
Well, and this brings to light another, problem or whatever you would think of it. It says in here that, because it was never properly classified, it stayed hidden for decades, despite the fact that they were searching for it, an extensive search, they said. And it was only discovered because she happened to notice it, and museums, they have hundreds of thousands of items, things they don't always put on display, just things in the back room. And how many things do they have in their back rooms that are lost?
Oh my God.
Or misclassified, or possibly purposely misclassified?
Oh, endless, countless. I mean, look at the stuff from the Greek book we were reading. Just so happened to have that vase in the back that, could have shown what the materials were being used. I mean, it's just crazy. Right.
It seems like with things being shut down and scaled back, now would be a good time to clean your back room. You know what I mean? Like go back, go through your collections, make sure everything's correct, note things that maybe need a little more study, things like that.
Yeah. So. Well, I'm sure they do their best.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's very overwhelming. Tons of stuff. All right, so let's move on. So this next story is really cool. It's from Egypt, and there is a myth in Egyptian culture. It's called the land of Punt, or God's land, and it's something the Egyptians occasionally talked about in their hieroglyphics, but it's one of those lands that's never been proven. They've never found it. They don't know where it is. Kind of like, Troy. It's in stories, it's in legends, it's in the writings, but they didn't know anything about it. So they've happened to find this 3,300-year-old baboon skull that they think points to where this land of Punt could possibly have been.
Wow.
Which is amazing because, anytime you find something from a legend like that, that makes it real, that makes a lot of the other writings,
right,
a lot more real.
Right.
So it claims in this article that the Egyptians first began to travel to Punt about 4,500 years ago, and they continued to do so according to their hieroglyphic written records. But although the records and artworks list the products the Egyptians brought back from Punt, like resins and metals and hardwoods, exotic animals, archaeologists have found very little hard evidence of any of these goods. So they found this baboon skull, and they did a study on the tooth enamel, and it confirmed that the ancient baboon had not been born in Egypt and instead came from an area that stretches across modern day Ethiopia and northwest Somalia, which is where they think that this Punt was located in that time. So it implies that the baboon is perhaps one of these exotic animal treasures that had been brought back. So they're very excited about that, and they're hoping that they can start finding, more things like this.
Yeah, it's cool they finally found some evidence to back that up, because that was the theory.
Right.
And again, like you said, with Troy, right? It's I hate the fact that, because there's so much they haven't found, so much they don't know, but they're always like, oh, that's probably a myth.
Right. It's just something they wrote and made up. It doesn't have any basis in fact.
Doesn't matter.
All
the rest of it was true. That's
that one thing is
that
false.
one thing's false.
All right. So let me go on to this last discovery, and this is one we've talked about before. It's about the Aztec Skull Tower in Mexico City. Now, it's a tower that so far archaeologists have found with 676 skulls. And it's on a site next to Mexico City's Metropolitan Cathedral. And it's just this amazing Aztec tower just built up with this, a skull rack. It's unbelievable. Well, they've unearthed another 119 skulls on this tower, and they still have not found the base of it.
Oh my God.
So it's really unusual. And another surprising discovery with this, they expected to find the skulls of young male warriors. You would think this was made out of the skulls of your enemies that you defeated, but that isn't the case. They found a lot of the craniums of women and children in with this. So now it raises questions about human sacrifice in the Aztec Empire, or maybe they weren't all warriors. Maybe some of them were just innocent, victims or whatever. So I don't know. Very crazy. I love, the pictures of this are so creepy because it's exactly what you expect to see in an old Aztec ruins.
Like a Conan movie.
Right. So they are still excavating this, and it's just amazing. And it talks about how invaders led by the Spanish conquistador, Cortez, when they came, how interesting it would have been that they showed up and they had all these skull towers, and how weird that would have been. But
yeah.
I don't know, very crazy.
No, I love the way it looks. That's totally something we would have done.
Yeah. Made buildings out of the skulls of our enemies.
Yeah.
You got to do something with them. You can't just leave them laying around piles. That's kind of messy.
Why waste them?
Exactly, when you can make towers.
Such amazing decorations.
All right, so I got a few more stories here. And this one I thought was really interesting because we've been having sort of this series of weird things that people have been finding in their houses when they redecorate and remodel. And this one's from Boston. And this Boston resident made an interesting discovery when he found a mysterious message in a bottle that's been in his wall for 126 years. Now, it was a whiskey bottle that was N. Simon's, importer and wholesale liquor dealer. And the bottle, on the label, it says 31 and 33 Castle Street, Boston. So it was some local liquor bottle. And inside was a rolled up note. And on the note was just scribbled a name, Tom Ford. And then it says 6 on Shay. And then the date, September 23rd, 1894. So they assume that this was placed in there by past builders, but nobody has any clue what the note means, why it would have been in a bottle, and why they would have felt that they needed to inter it into the wall of this home.
I don't know. It's pretty crazy, man. They need to maybe check out local horse racing action from that time period. Perhaps.
It seems silly to put that, unless they were just being funny and maybe he was drinking on the job and he didn't want anyone to see him and he just stashed the sucker in the wall so nobody saw what he was doing. I don't know. Very strange. They did post it online. Of course, people were all giving their opinions. A lot of them, I think, did the horse racing bet because that is what it sounds like, but just really odd things to be finding.
It is very much so.
I still would have put it back in the wall just in case.
Yeah, me too. I wouldn't have taken it out, actually.
Wouldn't have taken it out.
I don't even care about what the note said.
All right, so this next story is about an interview that George Clooney had done recently with GQ, and he was revisiting some of his more iconic movie roles, and they started talking about the Ocean's movies.
But they didn't talk about Batman, did they?
I didn't listen to the interview, but I'm going to guess no on that. So this particular story is about how George Clooney bet Brad Pitt and Don Cheadle $10,000 to spend the night in a haunted house on Lake Como, and they could not do it. So it's a really funny story. I love that it was him and his Italian friend. He had an Italian friend. He was staying in a house on Lake Como, and they pretended to read a story about a man who used to kill people in the now abandoned house that was across the lake from them. And then supposedly this killer would throw the bodies into the lake. And they had this book, and so they started pretending like they were reading it, and they made this story up about this whole haunted house, and they managed to talk everybody into how dangerous the house was. And so then they decided to get in the boat with a ladder and go across the lake to this house, because that's what you do after you sit around and you've been drinking for some time.
Right.
Smart things. So it was 3 a.m, and they got a ladder and they put it on this pontoon boat, and they took the boat across the water, and they took the ladder and they climbed up into the house. And he said the first thing they saw in the house was a statue of a snake eating a woman's head. So it was a very creepy house. So they came down to the conclusion that they would give $10,000 to any guy who could spend the night in the haunted house with just a candle and a bottle of wine. So they got a candle, they got 6 matches, and they get a bottle of wine. And that was it. And they had spent all night. So it was Brad Pitt and Don Cheadle who ended up taking the bet. And George Clooney and Matt Damon was there. They went back to the boat and they drove out to the middle of the lake. And they just sat there to see how long it would last. So he said they were sitting in the boat in the middle of the lake and they saw the candle go by the window like 2 or 3 times. And then all of a sudden they just called and was like, F that, get us out of this house. So not saying the house was really haunted, but clearly whatever they told them was enough to freak them out.
Well, yeah. I mean, you never know. The house could have been haunted.
It could have been. It was abandoned.
Yeah.
And that's a clearly weird statue. So there's a really good recipe there for for a haunting.
Absolutely.
But
pretty funny though.
Kind of a funny story. Yeah. See, not everybody can do the paranormal investigating thing.
No, especially if you've not done it before. It's heavy.
It is. I do have to say though, it would be hard with just a candle.
Yeah.
Because that's not a lot of light. I mean, you're talking
I don't know.
about
The bottle of wine would help.
It would if you just resigned yourself to sit down and drink it.
Yeah.
I don't know, $10,000. I probably would have fallen asleep and just tried to make it.
We would have figured it out.
All right, so last story, and this is about another potentially haunted home, although the article doesn't quite point to that. This is about a man who unfortunately died while trying to burglarize a home. And he supposedly, according to the police, was trying to get in through a window, and the window slammed down on him, pinning him. And when they arrived at the place, that he was already dead. Supposedly his neck had been caught in the window. Wow. So his family and friends told the station that they believe there is more to the story. It was very unexpected because they just showed up and this guy was just being suspended in the air in this window. Wow. So this is really strange because when John and I first saw the story and we were sort of discussing it, it seemed like something that would happen in a haunted house. Yeah. I mean, the window slamming thing is very
I've seen it
paranormal.
Happen. And I've seen it happen where it open slams. So definitely seen it happen. And if you're protecting your house and you know somebody means it harm, then I can see that happening. I mean, from a vengeful spirit. Right. Either that or a severe bout of karma.
Yes.
I mean, either way you want to look at it, I would say that his vengeful spirit is probably also part of that place now.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Now, they didn't give the exact address, but if you look up this police report, it gives you kind of an area. So, if you're interested in looking to see if you live in this area of Florida, see if you think that's a haunted area.
Never know. It's a pretty insane story. It really is. I mean, how damn hard did that place have to come down to do that? Yeah,
and to pin you. I mean, it's a window. You should be able to lift a window.
Yeah.
It's just said that he was trying to work his way through the window and it unexpectedly closed on top of him, pinning him and keeping him suspended in the air.
Sounds like a start to a good book.
And somehow his neck got in there. I don't know. It's none of that. I agree with his family. None of that makes any sense because his hands would have been free if it was his neck, and I don't know. It's very strange.
Yeah. It really is. And it belongs right where you put it.
Yes.
Because that's a big thumper.
Right there to end on.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of ending on things, our next episode next week will be our traditional year-end, get ready for the party kind of thing, and we're going to be compiling all kinds of stuff, this week, and not only for our appearance on ScarefestRadio.com, on Scarefest Television West Forsyth on Friday, January 1st at 9 p.m. that I want you guys to all be a part of. But also for our next episode, which will be our So Long to the Rona thing, we'll come up with something special for it. But I'm planning a bunch of fun stuff. It'll be off format, so it'll be just a special episode where we do our thing. I don't know exactly what that is yet. I can just tell you that it will be off format. So as far as if there's some news that's really huge that we have to talk about, we will absolutely do that. As always, we won't let stories go by, but for the most part, we're going to have a lot of fun, and we invite you to join in and bring it on and send us some suggestions if there's anything you want us to cover, any list you want us to cover, anything like that. We'd be glad to, ignore it. And so, but just let us know anyway, because we love all of you. Don't forget patreon.com/paranormal sideshow. Be a great Christmas gift for loving young children. And other than that, this is from the bottom of my heart. All joking aside, I hope however you celebrate, you have a wonderful holidays. And, from me and Stacey to you, we love all of you so much. And you make every year just fantastic for us with the interactions and coming and, allowing us into your home or your car or your headset or whatever, the time you're supposed to be working, whatever it is, each week. We really appreciate you more than we could ever really, repay or voice in words. But I will say this, and that's happy holidays. My name's John. And for Stacey, so long from the Sideshow.
Good night.